Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Economics. How are you all doing? I hope you all are doing good. Today I work for you all October November 0455 variant 13. We'll be doing paper 1 today. Let's quickly see what this paper has brought for us today. MCQ number 1. MCQ number 1 says what is least likely to increase the geographical mobility of labor? This means out of these four factors, three factors would be contributing towards an increase in the geographical mobility of labor. There would be only one response, there would be only one option out of these four that would actually reduce the possibility of the labor being geographically mobile. That means it would actually prevent the labor from easily moving to opt for jobs from one geographical location to another. Let's look at the responses. A says greater provision of information about available jobs. B says improve roads and communication network. C says increase opportunities for education and training. So if you look at option A, B and C, all three options are going to be contributing towards an increase in the geographical mobility of labor, right? All three of them will improve or help the labor to move from one location to another. But what about option D? Option D says strengthen family ties and relationships. So the stronger the family ties and relationships would be, the more unwilling people would be to leave their families behind or to move from their current location, right? So it would be a hindrance. So for MCQ number 1, we shaded D as the correct response. MCQ number 2. 2 says, which value does opportunity cost measure? Now, that's an easy question. Opportunity cost is the cost of the next best alternative foregone. So, by definition, it has to be option B. MCQ number 3. MCQ number 3 displays a PPC curve. That's a production possibility diagram. It has displayed as four positions. The vertical axis displays the consumer goods, the horizontal axis displays the capital goods, and now they are seeing out of these four options, which position is most likely to contribute towards the greatest outward shift of the PPC. That means out of these four positions, A, B, C, and D, which do you think in the future would be contributing towards the PPC, achieving the highest contribution? So now if you look at option A, that's inside the curve. So that means what? It's the economy at the current level is actually underutilizing its resources. So it can't be A. Similarly, same goes for C. Even if A and C moves in the future, they would be at the PPC, on the PPC, right? Out of option, so we can chop A and C at that very moment. Out of option B and D, now if you look at B, at point B, you are at a point where, yes, the amount of consumer goods is high, so is capital goods. But if you compare it with the position D, so at point D, the amount of consumer goods is considerably less than the economy would have been producing at point D. However, the amount of capital goods is more, right? The amount of capital goods is more. And we know by definition that being at point D would enable the economy to have the greatest outward shift. Why? Because production of capital goods, which means resources such as machines, tools, and factories, they will help produce more in future, right? So they would actually be contributing towards the greatest expansion or productive capacity of the economy, right? So producing more of capital goods would be contributing towards more goods and services in future for the economy. Hence, we'll opt for option D. I wanted to explain you the logic behind choosing D, not answering this for the sake of answering, but understanding it as well, right? So this is the reason why we'll choose option D. So for MCQ number 3, D is the correct answer. I hope it's clear. Number 4. Number 4 says, what is not a function of prices in a market economy? So market economy is one in which the price mechanism plays a vital role. They say out of these 4 options, there's only going to be one reason which is not the reason why a market economy relies on prices. A says prices allow income to be distributed equally. B says price rations scarce resources. Prices rise and fall to reflect shortages and surpluses. D says prices send information to consumers and producers. D, that's the function. C is also the function. B is also the function. It's only A which is not the reason why prices are used as a mechanism in market economy, because income disparity exists, income inequality exists. So for 4, it has to be A. MCQ number 5. MCQ number 5 displays a demand and a supply diagram. They have displayed multiple supply curves and demand curves. Now they're saying it shows the market for fresh fish in the Caribbean with equilibrium at X. So initial position is at X. Initial demand curve is D1 and S1 is the current supply curve. Now the market is at X. Now they're saying a new type of fishing boat increases production. So if production is increased, this means what? This means supply should increase, which reduces costs. If costs increase and production enhances, this means the supply curve should be moving forward, moving outside towards the right. So if initially we were at point S1, the outward shift should be at S2, but nothing else is being changed to the demand curve, right? We are at the same demand curve. So being at the same demand curve, but moving forward outside onto a new supply curve means we would shift at point D, right? So D is the correct answer. MCQ number 6. MCQ number 6 displays a market schedule for good X. It's a table. The first column displays the quantity supplied. The second column displays the quantity demanded. They have displayed as 4 different prices. When price was 10, quantity supplied was 400, quantity demanded was 100, and similarly it goes all up to price 7. Now they're saying if the quantity supplied increases by 50% at each price, what will be the equilibrium price and quantity? So now let's first increase the quantity supplied by 50% at each price. It was 400, increasing it by 50% would mean 400 and adding 200 to it. That's the 50%, so it would be 600. 300 increased by 50% would be 450. 200 increased by 50% would be 300. And 100 increased by 50% would be 150. Now, you have to determine the equilibrium point. Equilibrium point is where quantity supplied is equals to quantity demanded. Because the new quantity supplied is this, the one which I have written. So the new quantity supplied is 300. Quantity demanded was already 300. So we've determined the equilibrium position, which means the price is 8. And that's option C. So for MCQ number 6, we'll shade in C as the correct answer. Alright, MCQ number 7. MCQ number 7 has given us information and they are asking us to calculate price elasticity of supply. Now we know price elasticity of supply is equals to percentage change in quantity supplied upon percentage change in price. The triangle displays the change. Now, how do we calculate percentage change in quantity supplied? Percentage change in quantity supplied would be the new quantity supplied minus the old divided by the old into 100. So, quantity supplied of fish has increased from 100 to 130. So, the new quantity is 130. Initial was 100 divided by the initial, which was 100, into 100%, right? So, this means it's 30. So, percentage change in quantity supplied is 30. So, the numerator is 30. Now, we'll calculate the denominator. Percentage change in price. Percentage change in price is again The new minus the old. The new price is what? 4.8. Initial was 3 divided by the initial, which was 3, into 100. You plug in the figures, put it into the calculator, and the amount you're going to be getting is 60. So the denominator is 60. Percentage change in quantity supplied upon percentage change in price. So this is percentage change in price, 60. Percentage change in quantity supplied was 30. 30 upon 60 is going to give you 0.5. So price elasticity of supply is coming as 0.5. So option A is your answer. So for MCQ number 7, we'll shade in A. I hope you've understood. Alright, number 8. Which combination shows features of mixed economic system? Mixed economic system is in which there is a price mechanism, there is a private sector and a public sector. So it's a yes, and a yes. So 3 parts of the equation being satisfied. For MCQ number 8, we'll shade in B as the correct answer. Number 9, moving forward. It displays the demand and supply diagram again. It shows the equilibrium price for bread at $5. Now they're saying what will be the short-term effect if the government sets a maximum price below 5. So if the government sets a maximum price below 5, let's try to see the scenario. I'll draw a line over here below the equilibrium position and let's see what happens. Now this is the demand and this is the supply. So those consumers, the suppliers are willing to provide this much amount. The consumers are demanding this much. So this difference is what? Shortage. This means what? Demand is more than supply or an excess of demand over supply. So for MCQ number 9, C is the correct answer. Number 10. Why do banknotes function as money? A says they are backed by gold. B says they are durable. C says they are generally acceptable. D says they have intrinsic value. Alright, they are not backed by gold. They are fiat money. So A is incorrect. They are durable. It cannot be B because they are durable, but it's not the reason why banknotes function as money. They have to be accepted for exchange for goods and services. That's what makes money money. That's what makes banknotes function as money. They can't have intrinsic value because intrinsic value means when something has a value on their own. So unless and until banknote is what? Paper. So unless and until banknotes are accepted to be exchanged for goods and services, then they get a value. On their own, they don't have a value. So it's the acceptability, the general acceptability that makes them function as money. Right? Otherwise, they're what? Paper. Get it? So for 10, it has to be C. In this MCQ, students usually get stuck when they think. So these are the lines in which I want you to think and clear your confusion. Get it? All right, moving forward. MCQ number 11. Worker X earns less than worker Y. What is most likely to be true of worker X? So now why do you think worker X is earning less than worker Y? They have a longer period of training than worker Y. If they would have a longer training, they would have been earning more. So it's the opposite. They have a longer working day than worker Y. If they had a longer working day than worker Y, again they would have been earning more. C says they have skills that are more in demand than working Y. If they had better skills, then they would have been earning more. They have weak bargaining power than worker Y. Yes, they can't protect their rights. They are unable to demand higher wages. Maybe they are in a weaker scenario. They are unable to justify or add reasoning or work for their rights, demand more. Not in a position to bargain for their higher wages. So for 11, we'll shade in D. All right, moving forward. Number 12. What would increase the strength of a trade union? Why do you think a trade union would grow in power? A growth in part-time employment, a growth in the membership, a rise in the national minimum wage, a rise in the standard of living. If the standard of living improves, trade union would be less in power. No one would want to be a part of them because they are good, better off like that. A growth in membership, yes, that's the correct point. Why? Because the higher the people add into their group, the more strength they'll grow. They grow in size, grow in power, right? It can't be A and C because if part-time employment is already provided to people, they won't be a part of the group of the trade union. Similarly, there's a rise in the national minimum wage. People will be better off otherwise. No need to be a part of a trade union and go for collective bargaining. So we'll chop A, we'll chop C, we'll chop D. B is the correct answer for MCQ number 12. Moving forward, MCQ number 13. MCQ number 13 says the size of the domestic car industry in Japan has enabled Japanese car producers to be more price competitive than rival car producers. So this means they are what? Experiencing economies of scale. What is an explanation for this? Economies of scale are present in the Japanese car industry. Why? Because they have the lowest average cost of production. So the lowest average cost means economies of scale. Right, guys? So for 13, we'll shade in A. 14. The table shows the output of cakes from 4 bakeries A, B, C, and D. So option A, B, C, and D are what basically? Bakeries. The first part of the table displays the labor, how much hours per day is being put in, and how much cakes are produced per day. So they're asking which bakery has the highest labor productivity. So what will we do? We'll divide the output per unit of labor. So we'll divide output with labor. So 40 divided by 10 is 4. 640 divided by 40 would give you 16. 750 divided by 50 would give you 15. And 500 divided by 100 would give you 5. So this is giving you the highest output per hour, right? That's giving you the highest labor productivity. So for 14, we'll shade in B. Moving forward. Number 15. The table shows the average revenue and the average cost at different levels of output. When all output is sold, which level of output generates the most profit? So we'll take a difference of the revenue and the cost at each output to yield which is giving us the maximum difference, and whichever is giving us the maximum difference, which means the firm is enjoying the highest level of profit. So the revenue was 10, 10 and subtracted from 30 would give you a negative 20. So this is a loss. 20 from a 20 subtracted is neither a loss nor a profit. 25 subtract from a 15 is giving you a plus 10. And 30 subtracted 18 is giving you a plus 12. So at point D, option D is yielding you the highest profit of plus 12. So we'll shade in D for MCQ number 15. So we are halfway down the paper. Alright, moving forward. MCQ number 16. Which role is not performed by a government? Paying dividends to shareholders, promoting international trade agreements, providing state benefits, subsidizing merit goods. Yes, government subsidizes merit goods. Government provides benefits such as pensions, right, and health benefits, right, and unemployment benefits. Promoting international trade agreements. Yes, government does that. Paying dividends to shareholders. That's the job of the private firms. That's what government does not do. So for 17, we'll shade in A. I skipped 16. All right, MCQ number 16 says, what would make the existence of a monopoly market more likely? All right. Consumers prefer a variety of choice in products. A monopoly does not provide a variety of products. They restrict the output, right, or the choices. So it cannot be A. Significant economies of scale can be achieved. Yes, that's the correct answer because a monopoly is large in size and it can have the lowest average cost, unlike a small producer. So that's the correct answer. But why it can't be C and D? Because C says there are low barriers to entry and exit for firms. No, there are high barriers to entry when we're talking about a monopoly situation. And D says there are no restrictions on international trade. So it is not, it works with monopoly market because once you're talking about monopoly, monopoly is large in size and it has nothing to do with international trade of this MCQ at the moment because we are referring to a monopoly situation. It's large in size, right? So we are talking about Option B, that's the correct response. We'll shade in B for MCQ number 16. Alright, moving forward, MCQ number 18. We did 17 first by mistake. Alright, MCQ number 18. 18 says a government has stated for the next year it has four main aims. So these are the four main objectives a government wishes to achieve for its next year. First is low and stable inflation. Second is providing subsidies to farmers. Excuse me. Three says raising productivity of workers in the public sector. And number four is stability in the balance of payments. So one is low and stable inflation. Second is subsidies. Third is raising productivity. Fourth is stability in the BOP. Now they're saying what are the two macroeconomic aims? Now macro means governing the entire economy. Providing subsidies is a micro. It's only related to farmers. It's a small level. Similarly, workers in the public sector is also concerned to that area. So it's inflation and BUP, we are talking about aggregates, so it has to be 1 and 4. So this means B is the correct answer. So for 18, we'll shade in B. Number 19. What is not likely to be included in a government budget? Government budget is what? Revenues, expenses. So anticipated tax revenue, yes, it could be part. Guessing not likely. Forecasted government borrowing, proposed government spending, that will all be a part of the government budget. How much would it be earning, how much it would be spending, how much it plans to borrow, how much it plans to save. But changes in exchange rate is a part of the exchange rate policy. It's not related to budgets. So for 19, we'll shade in B. Moving forward. 20. MCQ number 20. Which combination policy measures is most likely to increase total demand in an economy? So if you want to boost aggregate demand, you want to increase aggregate demand, what should you do? Money supply should increase. Why? Because you're talking about expansionary monetary policy. So when you talk about expansionary monetary policy, money supply should increase. So look at options where increase is written under money supply. It's in C and D. So chop A and B at the moment because they're both talking about decrease. What about interest rate? You want to increase aggregate demand. So interest rate should be low. Why? Because you want to increase what? Production. You want to enable firms to expand, right? So interest rate should be low in order to boost the output level. So interest rate low is where? Where it's displaying a decrease. So it has to be, where is it displaying a decrease? In option C and in option A, but we've already chopped in A. So far, C is looking the answer. What about exchange rate? Devaluation. Why? Because once you devalue your currency, your exports get relatively low priced and your imports get expensive. Exports get cheaper and imports get expensive. So people would cut down on imports and your exports would get boost and your balance of payment would be in a favorable position. And you should go for option C. So 20th MCQ, C is the correct answer. I hope it's clear. Moving forward, MCQ number 21. Which supply side policy measure would most likely to cause the greatest increase in labor productivity? So you want to increase the labor productivity. Out of these four options, which one would yield the highest labor productivity? So this means out of these four, all would be contributing except for one which would be contributing the most. A decrease in the corporation tax, a reduction in income tax rate at the top level, improved education, privatization of a state-owned industry. So all A, B, and D can contribute, but in an indirect way. It's improving education and training provision, which would boost the highest productive capacity of an economy, productive potential of an economy, because that's what they're saying, greatest increase. So for 21, we shade in C. MCQ number 22. How is economic growth of a country measured? Economic growth is measured by what? A real increase in the GDP level, right? This means C should be the correct answer. Why it cannot be A, increase in the monetary value, because monetary value does not displays an increase in its real terms. It cannot be B because B is showing an increase in the employment level, the reduction in unemployment level, but it does not talks about economic growth. It cannot be D because D talks about human development index. It talks about standard of living, but not economic growth. Economic growth is when there is an increase in what? In the productive capacity, right? All right. When there's an increase in the country's output of goods and services. So for 22, we'll shade in C as the correct answer. Moving forward, MCQ number 23. A country experiences a significant fall in unemployment. What is a possible advantage and a possible disadvantage? So if a country experiences a fall in unemployment, what would be a disadvantage? First, look at this part. A fall in labor disputes, that would be an advantage, chop it off. A fall in poverty, again, that would be an advantage, chop it off. A rise in inflation rate, yes, that could be a disadvantage because unemployment falls, people would be spending more, there would be demand pull inflation. What about an advantage? Yes, living standards could improve because people would be better off, they will be earning incomes. So for 23, we'll shade in C as the correct answer. Number 24. A country's consumer price index falls from 120 to 110 in a year. What will likely to be effect of this fall? So if CPI falls from 120 to 110, this means that there is deflation. Price levels are falling. Price levels are falling. There is deflation. It cannot be A because A says real incomes rise, money buys more. Right? Savings will fall in real terms. C says the rate of interest will rise. D says the real value of debt will rise. So B cannot be the answer. C cannot be the answer. Why it cannot be B? Because savings will become more valuable. It cannot be C because it does not necessarily guarantees that the rate of interest is rise. It has to be D. Why? Because borrowers must repay money that is now worth more. So debt gets more expensive in real term because debt gets more expensive in real term, right? So for 24, we'll shade in D as the correct answer. Moving forward, the population of four countries A, B, C, and D are all equal. Which country is likely to have the highest growth given the changes in the table? So, population is at the moment equal. Which country will have the highest growth? Birth rate should rise, death rate should fall, birth rate should rise, death rate should fall, and net migration should increase, right? So for 25, we'll shade in B as the correct answer. MCQ number 26. MCQ number 26 says which combination would be found in a less developed economy. So a less developed economy is in which literacy rate, people are less educated. So it has to be low. So it could either be B or D. Population growth has to be high. So this means it cannot be D. Tertiary sector is small. So for 26, it is B. Number 27. What is a likely benefit of increased national specialization? So when a country specializes in the production of goods in which it has a comparative advantage, what happens? It reduces the cost of living, right? It's better off. It's earning more. So for 27, it has to be D. It cannot be A, it cannot be B, it cannot be C because C is a disadvantage. Again, B is also a disadvantage because says you're going to be dependent on other economy. That's incorrect. B says it guarantees a balance of trade, not necessarily, right? Number 28. What is not a benefit of free trade? So this means three would be benefit except for one. Firms could take advantage of economies of scale. Firms could be protected from foreign competition. Consumers should have greater choice of goods. That's an advantage. Consumer should experience low prices. That's also an advantage. Firms could take advantage of economies of scale. That's also an advantage. It's only C that they cannot be protected from foreign competition. They'll be more prone to having price wars and more severe competition from international arena. So for 28, it has to be C. Number 29. Which combination of changes would raise the price of Pakistani rupee on the foreign exchange market? So if there is an increase in the demand for Pakistani exports, so the rupee would be boosted. So it has to be an increase. So which shows an increase? C and D. But what about the demand for imports? The demand for imports should be what? Increase or decrease? The demand for imports should be less. Then only your country would be better off. Your country's exchange rate, right? So for 29, it has to be C. Last MCQ 30. What is likely a government policy? What is a likely government policy to reduce a deficit on its BOP? So, how would a country cause a, to reduce a deficit on its BOP? By increasing the value of the foreign exchange, by increasing training for workers, by reducing subsidies, by reducing tariffs. If it reduces tariffs or if it reduces subsidies, it's going to be worsening the situation, right? What about option A, increasing the value? If it increases the value, so again, what? Exports would be expensive, imports would be cheap. Again, it would be worsening the scenario. So A, C, and D would worsen the scenario. It's only option B that providing training to its domestically manufactured producers, the workers. It was going to be boosting the production level and enhancing export level. So for 30, it has to be B. I hope you've understood and you enjoyed solving the paper with me. Stay tuned. I'll be sharing more such papers, bringing more content for you. Subscribe, share. Happy learning.